Regulars know I'm working my way through Always Sunny by the episode, 200 seconds at a time. Consider this an appendix to Dee Reynolds' Shaping America's Youth. I'm going to talk firstly about Black creative responses to the removals by academics, journalists and creatives. In the second half of the video, I'll look specifically inside companies for the management who made such bold and sweeping progressive moves with the suspicious quietness. In June 2020, following the surge of the Black Lives Matter movement, streaming platforms Hulu and Netflix performed a cull of shows they distributed, which included blackface, brownface, yellowface, or raceface. Among these was an episode of Community with a powerful anti-suicide statement. This included 5 episodes of Always Sunny, henceforth known as the Whitewash Gang, which used the race face as a commentary to talk about the prop itself and for the horrendousness of the gang. The first 2 instances, America's Next Top Model Billboard contest and Dee Reynolds Shaping America's Youth, address blackface, if my opinion recalls, with added critical specificity. Top Model is the more nuanced of the two, whereas Shaping America's Youth uses character and illustration to dismantle the concept in a confrontational manner. We'll leave aside that all censored episodes have D at their core.
You bitch.
And we'll leave aside the intersecting sociologies of gender and class status. Leave it all aside. There's large audience consensus this was blackface whitewash. Rebecca Wonzo, professor of women, gender and sexuality studies at Washington University, writes for CNN, pulling these episodes demonstrates a mere surface engagement with the history of blackface and an inability to recognize precisely what makes racist representations injurious. And talking about these in a compartmentalized way leaves out practices of exclusion, discrimination, and bad faith economics. Professor Wonzo identifies 2 ways non-black people have used blackface. Definitions Sonny's writers address directly with members of the gang, co-opting black identity and caricaturing it. Historical uses from Hollywood archives were collated by Spike Lee in his important film Bamboozled. This is the lens Aisha Harris in the New York Times uses in attempts to organize modern use of blackface. She comes up with 5 categories. The first is attempted satire, such as that used by Tropic Thunder and Always Sunny. Yes, you'll recognize Rebecca Wanzo's description. Usually white men with an unflappable belief that they can play any role as long as they're method enough. It's a style that is self-aware and progressive, yet can't talk about the insidiousness of blackface with relation to a broader societal fashion. There are limits to its understanding and to its subversiveness. The Trading Places mold concerns itself with race swap, how edgy, where progressive Hollywood doesn't understand. Third, just because. Fourth, historical reference and relevance, setting the context. And finally, the question of, is this blackface? Similarities but not actualities to the prop designed to make us uncomfortable and question. Harris agrees with Spike Lee that scrubbing blackface is not productive, and she cites Associate Professor Raquel Gates at the College of Staten Island, who reminds us that the use of blackface can be self-aware, a scathing critique, or asking questions, and not necessarily offensive. Going forward, its use should be deployed carefully. Caroline Framke in Variety also cites Gates and her criticisms of Hollywood taking shortcuts. Like many of us, Gates is extremely skeptical of streaming services' 2020 epiphany of creationist proportions, and writer Alana Bennett, who has said that these removals too handily skip over the process of acknowledgement of mistake and apology to become a hiding of historical archives, in effect a censorship of history. Framke talks to Hollywood historian Karina Longworth, whose analysis points to a PR exercise. See also distasteful cash grab. People can't see the problematic thing, which sort of absolves a company of ever having done it. Longworth says the removals are also the removal of an ability to have a meaningful conversation, which is quite needed. Kirsten Acuna analysed the problem in Business Insider, talking with 5 Black creators, writers, talent, and executives about the differing studio responses. The general response was that quite late self-censoring did more harm than good in dismantling racism. Screenwriter Bianca Sams points to the erasure as abdicating responsibility for contextualization, for mistakes. Performer Aniwa Boachi highlights how blackface dates back to at least the 1600s, something many non-blacks may not be aware of. And TV director Millicent Shelton talked of the need for education on context and productive discussion. What kind of culture are we in where racism is something to be laughed at? Shelton asks. And the answer I give is that culture is an emanation of a society with racist systems and attitudes where laughter is a weapon to fight with. Considering Sunny or any other show, we can imagine how these allegations play out in the argument against censorship. What if a band episode was all you knew of Sunny? Would the removal form part of
the implication
that the episode was racist, and by extension, its creators, without even your own chance to do some content analysis on it? Consequentially, fake reporting lets the real offenders move freely. It's telling the removal came with no circulated public statement, or that no personnel took responsibility for these actions. I make up the rules. What are the rules? When I'm suddenly in charge and the company's large, then I'm gonna have to make up new rules. So let's turn an eye on corporate. 5 years on, all we got from inside the machine is a comment from a Netflix spokesperson. Netflix will not be providing comment on this. So the deductions I'm about to make are based only on the evidence of who occupied which role in which company back in July 2020 when the plugs were pulled. None of these people have spoken out as far as I'm aware. Netflix's decision to remove the Whitewash Gang episodes will have gone by founder and chair Paul Hastings and chief content officer Ted Sarandos. Rich white guys both. Hastings has, of note, a history of philanthropic donations to Black educational scholarships. Months after the Whitewash Sarandos moved to another role inside Netflix, their moves may have been part of the tide by more significant moves at Hulu and significant factors other than George Floyd and BLM. There was a major shake-up of Hulu management in 2018, and then they were acquired by Disney in 2019, to where the first few months of 2020 brought more management quakes. Disney began by eliminating the role of Hulu's CEO, and top executives were to report directly to Walt Disney. Inside Hulu, the arrow seems to point to Kelly Campbell. Campbell was Hulu's chief marketing officer, but at the beginning of 2020 was promoted to president of Hulu. She stayed in the role about 18 months, opting to head up NBC Universal streamer Peacock. Also linked to the decision is Dave Roth as Hulu's creative director. And a third suspect is a bizarre one. Around the same time the FX on Hulu Hub was launched, the person in charge was John Landgraf. Yes, the John Landgraf. Sonny's commissioner, recruiter of Danny DeVito, chairman of FX and mayor of TV. As far as I can tell, this is Landgraf in contract with Hulu. Oh Christ, they got the Landgraf. We do know many of the shows were taken down with endorsement by the production companies involved, including Sony and Community. In some cases, it was prompted by creatives involved on those shows as part of a greater public voicing. And although this didn't happen on Sunny, after the event, there were some comments on the show's general use of blackface from creators. But as the examples of the removals of episodes of Community and Sunny shows, there was irresponsibility in curating what was removed. Were Campbell, Roth, and Landgraf fearing a reprise of Disney's staff shake-up a little over a year before? I don't want you to think I'm accusing anybody, but it sure sounds like I am. It seems more likely they kowtow to their bosses, as most of us do most of the time. Longtime Disney CEO Bob Iger retired early in 2020, prompting a number of top-level shakeups inside Disney too. The company likely formulated their whitewash through the folks at Disney Direct-to-Consumer and International, aka the DTCI. In March, 3 months before the whitewash, Vanessa Morrison was appointed president of streaming. Previously, she served as president of Fox Family and Fox Animation. Overseeing streaming, she reported directly to head of motion picture production, Sean Bailey. In May, ex-president of ABC and a president of Disneyland Resort, Rebecca Campbell, became DTCI chairman. 1 week later, George Floyd was murdered. At the time, Rebecca Campbell, Morrison, and Bailey were about to launch a Star-branded entertainment streaming service. Many of these talks centered around Campbell's position because they were about to dissolve the DTCI. This was motivated by the success of streaming, including shows #Corporate Lives Matter had earned for them. The DTCI was replaced with Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution, DEM, and here we can see how the power associated with being Disney management had become hubris. At the end of 2022, DEM suffered such financial losses as to prompt another restructuring. Fairly quickly, Bob Iger was reinstated as Disney's CEO. Iger announced decision-making and operational control would return to the creative teams. Morrison is still head of streaming, though Bailey and Campbell have moved on from their roles there. So it's actually becoming fertile ground for those Sunny episodes to be returned, or Community at any rate. When the repugnant Dennis and Frank voice concerns on race that make a manager or board member look like a nutjob by comparison, maybe they should think twice. We're all entitled to transparency. 200 Second Sunny is largely a straight-laced review. For analysis with actual humour, you'll want to watch my videos on Doctor Who, Star Wars and Star Trek, which are all utterly rib-tickling. Or go and order Coastlines After Dark, a collection of stories inspired by 1980s and 1990s TV drama, with more cheese than the US and Germany combined. Please like and subscribe for constant notifications 10 times a day, and feel free to start an argument in the comments, showing us all the errors of our ways. Thank you to all my patrons, especially Andrew Gallagher, Alan Royal, Ben Stone, Arslan Hyder Ali, and Ian Lawler, who are all watching patreon.com/Andy Luke for all the stuff that happens there. See you later, jabroni.